It's always a tragedy when an actor loses their life, but it's even sadder when they go long before their time. From horrific accidents to long-standing illnesses to the perils of addiction, these are the action movie stars who suffered the most tragic deaths. Actor and martial arts legend Bruce Lee was just 32 years old when he died, but Lee accomplished more in his short life than most people do with 3 times as many years on Earth. Unlike so many movie stars who died early, Lee's passing came not as the result of reckless behavior, substances, or a freak accident, but from an unavoidable medical condition. Lee died on July 20, 1973, just a month before the release of Enter the Dragon. It was Lee's final film, and a movie considered by many to be the greatest martial arts film ever made. His sudden death was the result of a brain edema, or severe swelling of the brain, which was itself caused by a variety of factors. Lee was likely suffering from heat stroke and exhaustion at the time, the effects of which were magnified by a painkiller he took to relieve the symptoms of a severe headache. A subsequent investigation by the forensic expert Donald Tier suggested that Lee had suffered an allergic reaction to the medicine. Though countless conspiracy theories have circulated around the events of Lee's passing, there has been no hard evidence to support any of them. In the end, Bruce Lee's death was a simple and unforeseeable accident. Although he may not be well known to younger audiences nowadays, Vic Morrow was once a bona fide action star. Morrow, who was born in 1929, was legendary for playing strong and silent action heroes, most notably on the World War II action drama series Combat. Morrow's star settled a little during the 1970s, but in the early 1980s, he seemed poised for a comeback, thanks to a starring role in Twilight Zone: The Movie. The film was a feature-length adaptation of the wildly popular television series, and it had an all-star cast behind the cameras. 4 different legendary directors each helmed a quarter of the movie, which was divided into episodic sections. Morrow was starring in a portion of the film set in Vietnam, but on the very last day he was scheduled to be filming, Morrow was killed when a helicopter crashed down onto him during the shoot. 2 child actors also died in the crash, Mika Dinley and Renee Shenyi Chen. Director John Landis and 4 crew members were later charged with involuntary manslaughter. After a 9-month trial, however, all 5 were acquitted. If ever there were a role model for quiet courage, it was Chadwick Boseman. The Black Panther star knew full well that he was facing his own mortality due to colon cancer that proved impossible to cure even after countless surgeries and chemotherapy. When Boseman died in August 2020 at the age of 43, he had been privately battling the disease for 4 years, but had chosen to keep his health concerns out of the public eye. During this time, Boseman was a regular public presence, taking part in activities that went well beyond acting and promoting his on-screen work. Boseman, who began his career as a playwright and stage actor, only stepped into the limelight in 2010 when he was already well into his 30s. Films such as 42 and Get On Up allowed him to demonstrate his acting prowess. But it was his role as T'Challa in Captain America: Civil War that made Boseman an international star. The runaway success of Black Panther only cemented his reputation as an action legend. Boseman's first appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe had come in 2016, the same year that he received his diagnosis of stage 3 colon cancer. He spent much of his final years actively supporting charities devoted to cancer treatment and to childhood cancer in particular, while never publicly revealing his own diagnosis.
This loss is felt around the world. People in every country. He was pretty amazing. He is Wakanda forever.
Aaliyah was just beginning to stake out a claim in the film industry when she died at just 22 years old. Born Aaliyah Dana Houghton in 1979, the young singer signed to a record label at the age of 12, and in her mid-teens, she was already selling millions of records. Aaliyah went on to land the first of her 2 starring roles in a motion picture in the 2000 action film Romeo Must Die, in which she starred opposite international martial arts star Jet Li. The film opened in theaters across the US and remained there for 40 weeks. Although it was hardly critically acclaimed, the movie was a commercial success and marked the singer's pivot to acting. She next starred in the vampire thriller Queen of the Damned, which, sadly, would be a posthumous release for its star. On August 25, 2001, Aaliyah and several other passengers boarded a private jet in the Bahamas, where the singer was working on a shoot for a music video. The twin-engine Cessna 402B crashed shortly after takeoff, killing all aboard. The plane was later found to have been overloaded. The pilot was also not only unqualified to fly the aircraft, but was found to have drugs and alcohol in his system at the time of his death. After starring in a number of hit movies in the early 2000s, Heath Ledger became a full-blown icon after receiving overwhelming critical acclaim for his performances in Brokeback Mountain and The Dark Knight. He even earned an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his turn as the Joker, but it was, unfortunately, a posthumous honor. Despite his on-screen success and international stardom, Ledger was apparently living a life of private torment. In his final days, he was plagued by insomnia and suffered from walking pneumonia. Ledger was also suffering emotional upheaval following the breakup of his relationship with Michelle Williams, with whom he had a young daughter named Matilda. In the hours before his death, Ledger had taken a cocktail of drugs. His autopsy found that he died as the result of acute intoxication by the combined effects of oxycodone, hydrocodone, diazepam, temazepam, alprazolam, and doxylamine. He was just 28 years old. Wilt Chamberlain was, first and foremost, a basketball star. He was an absolute powerhouse in the NBA, a Hall of Fame player many place among the best ever to grace the court. Chamberlain remains the only professional basketball player to rack up a staggering 100 points in a single game. After his basketball career, Chamberlain followed many pursuits, from real estate to restaurants, and he also had a brief acting career. Chamberlain took the role of the villain Bombada opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 1984 action epic Conan the Destroyer. While the movie received mixed reviews at the time, it fared fine at the box office and is now considered a cult classic. Chamberlain planned other film projects, including a biopic of his own life, but wasn't to appear in another major film. Though known for remaining fit throughout his life, Chamberlain died suddenly in 1999. The apparent cause of death was a heart attack that came following several weeks of ill health, including an irregular heartbeat and massive weight loss. The 7'1" former NBA star reportedly lost some 50 pounds in the weeks leading up to his death. He passed away at his home in Los Angeles at age 63. River Phoenix was just 23 when he died of a drug overdose. Phoenix collapsed on the street in front of the storied Viper Room in West Hollywood, California on Halloween 1993. In his brief career, Phoenix had earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his role in the 1988 movie Running on Empty, and he'd even played a young Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. All in all, he was generally considered to be one of the most promising young actors of his time.
I just wish that I could go someplace where nobody knows me.
Much of Phoenix's life was complex and troubled, however. He reportedly busked on street corners with his sister to help his family make money and never attended a formal school. His parents also joined the Children of God cult and moved the family to Venezuela for several years, with Phoenix later revealing that the sect was a predatory organization. Although he had a reputation as a clean-living guy, the stress and pressures of his career and Hollywood culture took hold by the time Phoenix was in his early 20s, and he started using cocaine and heroin. The coroner's report into his death found that he had taken morphine, cocaine, Valium, marijuana, and cold medication prior to his death. Like father, like son, Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee, also died tragically young. In fact, Brandon was just 28 years old when he passed away, 4 years younger than his world-famous father. The circumstances of the actor's death were as tragic as they were complex, and almost entirely impossible to predict. Lee was killed while on set working on the dark action thriller The Crow, for which he would long be remembered after its posthumous release. And just as with his father Bruce, The movie that garnered Brandon the most acclaim and attention would be the one he would not live to see released. One scene in The Crow called for a close-up of several bullets, so the techs working on the film had removed all of the powder from the shells, then returned the actual bullets to their casings. The same gun was used in a later scene, now loaded with blank cartridges, essentially meaning they contained powder only and no projectile. However, a police investigation found that a tip of one of the cartridge's bullets had broken off from the cartridge and was lodged in the gun. This gun was then fired into Lee's chest. The actor was rushed to a nearby hospital, but despite 6 hours of surgery, he was later pronounced dead. Lee was buried beside his father in Lakeview Cemetery, Seattle. In an era before Netflix, Hulu, Prime, or even cable TV, millions of people would tune into the same television programs at the same time. For many viewers in the late 1950s and into the 1960s, one such show was Rawhide, one of the most beloved series of its day. One of the most beloved stars of that show was Eric Fleming, who played Gil Favor on the show. He may well have become an even bigger star on both the silver and small screens, but his life and career were cut short by a tragic accident. In September 1966, Fleming was killed while filming a motion picture in Peru. The actor was swept away by a river while on a shoot and drowned in the water. His body was recovered 3 days later. Irrfan Khan was a movie star in America, performing in movies such as Slumdog Millionaire, The Amazing Spider-Man, Jurassic World, and Life of Pi. But he was a full-blown megastar in his native India. Khan was a Bollywood icon who starred in dozens of films dating back to the 1980s. He should have had years of life left, too, but at just 53, he died after battling a rare neuroendocrine tumor, an abnormal growth that begins in the body's specialized neuroendocrine cells. Khan publicly revealed that he had been diagnosed with the affliction in late 2018. And he died as a result of complications a little more than 2 years later in April 2020. Adding to the tragedy of Khan's death was the fact that his mother had passed away just a week before he entered the hospital where he died. Khan was in good enough health to attend the funerary rites of his mother, but was unable to do so due to COVID-19 restrictions. In many ways, Rock Hudson seemed to lead a charmed life. A bona fide Hollywood icon who starred in multiple major celebrated films, he was wealthy, well-liked, and famous. He was lauded for his roles in Hollywood, such as All That Heaven Allows and Written on the Wind. But Hudson's life was unspeakably tragic, given that he lived as a closeted gay man off-screen while portraying straight hunks on film. Hudson's death was a tragedy too. At age 59, he died due to complications of AIDS. The year was 1985, and at the time, the disease was misunderstood and labeled as a so-called gay plague. Hudson's status as a film star and Hollywood stalwart helped focus the world's attention on AIDS when it became clear that he was suffering from it, leading to a shift in public perception towards the disease. Sadly, Hudson died within a few months of revealing his condition, and never got the chance to live more than a short period of his life as an openly gay man. Born in 1952, actor Christopher Reeve had found fame by his mid-20s, thanks to his part as one of the most famous movie characters of the modern era, Superman. Reeve portrayed the Man of Steel in multiple films and gained worldwide recognition for his performance. While he also starred in a number of other films, he is still best known for that role today. Off-screen, however, Reeve suffered a harrowing riding accident that left him a quadriplegic in 1995. Following the injury, he became particularly well known for his tireless work to help others who were similarly afflicted. The bitter irony of the actor who played Superman suffering an accident that left him paralyzed below his neck is no doubt rife, but Christopher Reeve was heroic in his tragedy. He and his wife, Dana, started the Christopher Reeve Foundation, which later merged with the American Paralysis Association to form the Christopher Reeve Paralysis Foundation. The charity funds research for the development of new treatments and cures for paralysis.
We're all one great big family, and any one of us could get hurt at any moment.
Reeve lived for 9 years after his accident, but succumbed to heart failure in 2004 at age 52. His heart condition was likely a complication of his paralysis, worsened by negative reactions to medications meant to repair the damage to his spine, though they weakened his heart in the process. Andrei Rene Roussimoff, better known to the world as Andre the Giant, very much deserved his screen and ring name. The movie star and professional wrestling sensation was a behemoth of a human being. At his largest, Andre stood 7 feet 4 inches tall and weighed an astounding 520 pounds. While it was his colossal size that made the man famous, however, the condition that made him a so-called giant also caused him great suffering and eventually led to his death. Andre was afflicted with a hormonal disorder called acromegaly, which triggers the pituitary gland to release excessive amounts of growth hormone, often resulting in gigantism. Born in 1946, Roussimoff was well over 6'6" by his teens and continued to grow well into his adult years. He was often plagued by aches and pains, suffered broken bones, could hardly fit into most cars, and struggled to board and sit on planes. He died at just 46 years of age, when his heart finally gave out on a trip to Paris to attend his father's funeral. Roussimoff could likely have received treatment that would have stopped or diminished the acromegaly that gave him his size, but decided not to do so in the name of his career. He died far too young, but will forever be remembered for his wrestling persona and his superb work in classic Hollywood movies. James Dean had starred in just a few movies when he died in a tragic auto wreck in 1955. But there was no doubt the 24-year-old was poised for greatness, and his legend has only grown over the years, too. Some mystery still surrounds the circumstances of the accident in which Dean died, but what is known is that Dean was driving a 1955 Porsche 550 on a California state highway when another vehicle turned in front of him with short notice. Unable to stop or steer away in time, Dean struck the other vehicle at speed. Dean's passenger was badly injured but survived, while Dean himself was killed almost instantly. While Dean was an absolute movie star of his day, he wasn't an action star. Curiously enough, however, that is no longer true. In a highly controversial move, the actor was digitally inserted into the Vietnam War movie Finding Jack. The film was originally slated to feature a CGI Elvis Presley, but the estate of the late King of Rock declined the role. Thus, decades after his death, James Dean stars in his 4th major motion picture, fighting in a war that began around a decade after the actor actually died. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please call the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration's 24/7 national helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357.